Hayward Hill is the Executive Director of the Chattanooga Public Library. As a speaker and thought leader on the future of public libraries, she addressed the FCC during the 2013 Broadband Summit and was a presenter on the Leadership and Collaborative Innovation panel at the Next Library 2013 conference in Denmark. Hill was recently elected by the International Federation of Library Associations and Institutions, the IFLA, to serve on the Governing Board Standing Committee for the upcoming 2013-2017 term. She is also the 2013 recipient of the Urban Library Council's Joey Rogers Leadership Award. Corinne Hill is currently a sponsor in the International Network of Emerging Library Innovators Project, a part of the Global Libraries Initiative of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which seeks to provide opportunities for library leaders to connect with each other, to explore new ideas, to experiment with new services, and to learn from one another. She just recently returned from Rotterdam, where the group from 31 countries representing 6 continents had their first meeting. Corinne Hill will show and tell her philosophy and experience in public library transformation in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and her new work with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Please welcome Corinne Hill.
Can we leave this on? Because I have a lot of stuff. I just realized standing there, I have all this stuff. I actually take notes and keep going to stay on track. Otherwise, I'll talk all day long. It's a thrill to be here, Jackie. The hospitality has been amazing. It's been a fabulous experience. I can't believe it's only, 36 hours? But it's tremendous, and it's been wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me. I am here, as Jackie said, to tell you a little bit about Chattanooga Public Library and public libraries really in general and what's happening with our industry in this new time in the 21st century. And as you know, I'm in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It's my new hometown. I've been there 19 months. We have about 170,000 people, and our library system has 4 locations. We have a budget of about $6 million US, about 5.7 of that we get from the city. The rest we kind of pick up through grants, state, endowments, that sort of thing. It's pretty typical. Chattanooga is in the southeastern portion of Tennessee. It's just north of Atlanta. It is absolutely stunning. Like I said, I have only been there 19 months. I'm still completely in awe that I am able to live in a place so gorgeous. It sits right on the Tennessee River and Georgia border. It's when you come from the outside and you go to Chattanooga, there is a vibe that exists there that is really difficult to explain to anyone. And there's this kind of can-do attitude that exists. And the people, I've been bringing in my leadership team's been coming in from the outside, and we talk about it sometimes, where there's this vibe that happens where you just feel a little bit invincible when you live there. It's like this very can-do kind of thing happening. Let me see. So Chattanooga is the first city in the Western Hemisphere to offer 1 gigabit per second fiber internet service to all of its residents and businesses. So that's 1 gigabit per second available to every home and business in a 600-mile area. So as I told you, I blew into town about 19 months ago as the new library director who really thinks the public libraries are places for personal fulfillment, for content creation, and community engagement. And I really also believe strongly that staying true to your true self is the only sustainable value, whether that's for you personally or for your organization. And so here I stand in this library business that's been around for 3,000 years, and our mission hasn't changed. We are an information and knowledge-based business, and we have survived because we have adapted. But we've always stayed true to who we are as a cultural and educational institution. We're about information and access to information. So here we are in the second decade of the 21st century with a knowledge-driven economy and information that's being delivered electronically, and I'm living in the city with the most broadband access in the country. That is sweet. Just to let you know kind of what I walked into, I inherited a 1976 library that is the main library, and I have three small branches. And quite frankly, I decided from the very beginning that I was going to embrace the brute architecture of that facility, and I was going to love the 70s vibe. The building is a monster. It's 5 floors of absolute pure concrete. And you couldn't ignore this if you tried. It's right in the center of the government business downtown. I mean, I just refer to it as an anchor. So here's this, I love the building. This is the boardroom with the original knoll table, the original fabric chairs. The chairs really need to be refabricated, but I refuse to do it until I find the original fabric. Knoll has reissued their 70s textiles. I have people searching for this yellow fabric because I'm not doing it till it happens. Bertoya chairs. These things are fabulous. They're everywhere. That's a little knoll table. And how about those filing cabinets? Are those fabulous? They're built in. I mean, that's like, so my staff, we keep our stuff in there, like our handbags, your rain boots, right? That's what we're keeping in there now. It's really fun. But as a library, it really was underperforming, and it had been, aesthetically, had really been neglected. This fountain, which is at the front, was one of the very first things that I did when I arrived, was to get it up and running. It hadn't worked in a number of years, and that just absolutely just broke my heart. So this is the library everyone in this room has grown up with and who loves in their heart, and this is the one that you all remember. It's the warehouse full of books where you were just a shush away from getting in trouble. And then they had the big reference desk, right, that the librarian sat behind. My friends and I, we call that the altar to the librarians, which is where you would come and you would confess to the librarian that you had no idea what you were doing and you could not find anything that you wanted. That was the environment that we know. That's the library that we know, and that's the library I inherited. But what I really wanted to do was I wanted to offer my community access to the next generation of libraries. And there really is a next generation of libraries, one in which I think the community drives the services, where you have access to technology that's not practical for you to have at home, and a place where you can create content, not just consume it. Libraries help our communities to succeed. So if there were ever an age for libraries, it is absolutely right now. I am convinced that this is our time. And I tell my colleagues over and over again that if we don't take advantage of this period of time for libraries, shame on us. Okay, I have to include this sign because I absolutely love it. I decided I wanted to serve coffee at the downtown branch. So the staff actually helped us design the blend, but we call it Shush. And I love the irony of that. And it's actually served behind the circulation desk because I didn't want to deal with turnover of vendors, because trust me, I'm not making any money on this. This is not a revenue generator. This is simply a value-added service. We charge people, but I'm not paying the light bill off this coffee income. But it's really great, and all of my circulation staff are professionally trained baristas. And I convinced them to do that because there's a national barista contest in Atlanta every year, and I told them that they could send someone as professional development next year, but then serve our Shush coffee. So I just absolutely love this picture. I think it's really fun, and it's us having a really good time. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what has been happening at Chattanooga Public Library. As I told you, it's a great space, it's a great town, underachieving library, which we're working on, but we really needed a place. As the team was coming together, we realized we really needed a place where we could try stuff. We needed a beta space. So in true librarian form, this is the 4th floor of the main library when I arrived. It was treated as an attic for 30 years. Some people call it storage, but because we're all family here, I'll tell you what it really was. It's hoarding. That's what this was, okay? There's no time for secrets. Because, there's just stuff you just never know when you're going to need. That 1979 television set. That stuff, this is the stuff we found up there. It was absolutely brilliant. How about city tax records, right? What do you do with that? And my personal favorite would be the badminton rackets. I have absolutely no idea. I'm thinking it's youth services. That's got youth services written all over it. But here's what happens when you have a public auction. I have got now 14,000 square feet of absolute raw space that is purely industrial, and I love the 1970s lighting. I can't even buy the light bulbs anymore. So the very first thing we did once we got it cleaned out was we got it wired with next generation wireless that can burst to a gig. My hardwired network was not stable, but I had wireless gig access up on the 4th floor. It was amazing. We worked with a company out of California called AeroHive, and they are the ones who do all the wireless for the Apple conferences. We love them. They're amazing. They make everything work. The next thing we did was our maintenance guys came in and actually cleaned the floor. It hadn't been cleaned in 30 years. It was quite a project, and they did an amazing job. And then they polished the concrete. This is what this is what it looks like. I thought that was pretty amazing. It's quite a difference. So then we went about, we needed to make partnerships. No one can do any of this by yourselves anymore. I mean, there isn't a soul out there. There isn't a nonprofit, a corporation. Everyone needs to be partnering anymore. And so that's what we started doing. And I really sent out my younger team folks and embedded them kind of in the gig community, because the guys who are hanging around coffee shops and drinking beer, they don't want to hang out with me. I mean, they just kind of look at me and go like, so you send the 20-somethings and the 30-somethings and let them develop those relationships. I go to Rotary, right? Okay. I also didn't want us to get into this typical partnerships that libraries do where, you go to the big corporation, you say, here's the project, write me the big check, and go away, and I'll send you a report. We really wanted to build relationships in the community and people who we would have mutually beneficial relationships. So our first was with AIGA, which is a group of local area designers. And some of them had actually created a typeface called Chat Type, which we actually use. It's the city's typeface, which is gorgeous. The very first thing they did was they held a program for their membership. And actually, it was really well received. They came, they had a big presentation, it went really well. And we thought, we need to do more of this. And this was, like I said, we really had nothing to do with it other than here's the space. And part of helping them push it out. Our next event was with the Digital Public Library of America, and they held their first App Fest on the 4th floor. And this is when was the original setup, and this is when we really started paying attention to how people were using the space. Everybody went up and redesigned the floor space. As soon as they showed up from all over the country. There was about 60 kids, 30. But all of a sudden, they're pulling furniture around, they're creating their own space, and they're working working the way they want to work. So we really started paying attention to that. But it was Kolab who really blew everything out of the water for us with their Will This Float program. Kolab supports startups in Chattanooga, and this Will This Float competition, or WTF, I love that, and that's like actually on the publicity for the program. The competition is a program for people to come and pitch their ideas, and then ideas get voted up or voted down, and you tweet the ideas. So last year it was on the 4th floor. Here's this industrial space. We had 450 people tweeting at the same time on wireless, on that multiple devices through AirHive without a hitch. The only hitch was Chattanooga Whiskey sponsored it, and everybody was really loud, and they had to shut down the bar. Other than that was the big hitch. But the tweeting worked. It was amazing. So we're hosting it again November 19th, and I love what we learned from them. What we learned from them is that if you take lighting and projection, you can make any space look amazing. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a really bad housekeeper, awful at it. And so when people come over to my house, I always dim the lights and light candles because then you don't see the dirt and everybody looks good, right? So they're happy, give them a little wine. It's a great night. That's what they did. They took that concrete industrial space, they made everybody look good, and they made the place look pretty, and they just did it with lighting and projection. It was phenomenal. So up until this point, we'd really just been an event space, and we've been bringing in people like that 450, those 450 people came to the library, had never been to that library before, I assure you. I'm willing to bet 425 of them hadn't been to the library, and the other 25 were staff. Had never been in the building. So anyway, this was our first move into taking it away, like really opening it up as into services. What kind of services could we now start providing to the public, not just doing it as an event space? So here we are on this amazing, beautiful Saturday morning in spring, and you have more than 1,000 people come to see what 3D printing was all about. It was a 3D demonstration. It was amazing. One of the things that I'm really proud of that I love about library services is that we serve, crib to grave, cradle to grave. We serve everybody. Everyone was here. I mean, infants in daddy's arms, right down to 90 years old. I heard about this. I want to see it before I die. Yeah, I mean the whole spectrum. It was amazing. And this was the most tweeted photo of the day. Our famous Meg Bacchus, who I adore, our staff person, just plopped this down there. If you have a library card, this is your printer. We, at the time, had one MakerBot printer in line. So here we were, we're like, okay, we're ready to roll out to the public, and we didn't want to do what really happens in library land where you like design it to the nth degree, and then, you have this big ceremony, everybody gets their picture taken, and you cut the ribbon, and you open it up, and you tell the public, here you go, this is what we've done for you. How amazing, see how amazing we are. We're so great. We really wanted this to be a public process and public engagement, and we wanted you to see our mess. We wanted the public to be part of that process, and we also wanted them to see how we work, how we pull all of this together. And so staff who were engaged in fourth floor activities up until this point moved out of their offices and they moved upstairs. And they said, I'm not hiring extra staff to work with the public. We'll just go up there and work, and when people show up, we'll help them. And that's what we did. And this is Meg. This is Meg Bacchus. Right before I got to Chattanooga, we had migrated to a new integrated library system with absolutely no cleanup of data. We just migrated everything over. So basically, it's a mess. I mean, our catalog is just a mess. So this is Meg on a ladder on the fourth floor on a whiteboard that takes up an entire wall, figuring out our database in front of the public. And that's just how we work. This is Maggie. Okay, Maggie is the person who convinced us that the youth department needed its own 3D printer. I dare you to tell her no, right? Look at that face. So basically, we ended up buying 2 more. The original that I told you about, we ended up with a 3 to 4 week backlog on printing jobs. And so folks like Maggie she wasn't happy. She was not a happy customer. So what we ended up doing was buying a second 3D printer for the fourth floor to take care of the backlog. And then we got a 3D printer for youth down on our second floor. Another service, we got a really expensive high-end scanner, LSTA money, not operating, use grant money. But we put it up on the fourth floor to figure out how it works, to see how the public was going to use it, to see where's the best place for us to roll it out. What's really lovely about having a beta space is that you can start a service and you can make all kinds of mistakes. And you just tell people, oh, this is just the beta floor. We're figuring this out. We agree with you, that's not how this should work. But I mean, it's really a lot of fun, and then the public really is helping us figure it out. This is right now housed in our local history department, and is available to the public there. This is a vinyl cutter. This is just really fun stuff now. And then we have a laser cutter, which I was told the passion of, we have to have this, Corinne. We have to have a laser cutter. And this is our second floor. I mentioned it a couple of times. It's another 14,000 square feet of space. What we're really doing, I am being a little bit more, for lack of a better term, thoughtful, but I don't think that's the right word, because we really are working on a design for this. We're working with a designer. We've gotten some funding from a local foundation, and they're really helping us design this space for youth 0 to 18. And what I really want to do is create a wonderland. It needs to be a place of wonder. And I'm committed to doing that. And I want those youth 0 to 18, for that to be a place where they can create content, not just consume it. I also want it to be designed by service, not by age. I want to limit the floor to 0 to 18, but if you are interested in film development, I don't want to have to tell Maggie that she has to wait until she's 12 to go to the teen area to get involved in video when she wants to do it now. And what we're seeing right now on the second floor, we're seeing a lot of they're learning together, they're teaching each other. The older kids are helping the younger kids and vice versa. It's a really interesting learning environment that's existing that I really want to nurture. This is another group that we've partnered with. They're called Engage 3D. They're part of US Ignite, Mozilla Ignite. Fabulous, fabulous guys. They came together with AIGA, who I've mentioned, and the library, and another local foundation. And what we did, or what they did, I'd love to take credit for it, was launch a 6-week code camp for youth 12 to 17. Okay, let's just, cool T-shirts. I'm still seeing these around town. That's like the key. But these kids learn how to code over the summer, and something that would have naturally fit into the 4th floor by now, we realized belonged on the 2nd floor. And here they are, they're showing off. This is the end of the program. My favorite story of this, I was telling Nancy when she took me from the airport, my favorite story of this was the family I met, or the mother I met, who was in a book group, who said, woman was telling me today that they were going away on a weekend trip, and Dad came home and said, we can stay over till Monday night. I got Monday off from work. We don't have to come back Sunday. And the young man said, sorry, Dad, I'm busy. I need to be at the library at 9 tomorrow for my code camp. And so that, I just love that story. But anyway, so they learned how to code. Also, Civic Engagement's been huge for us. This is Josh Higgins and Daniel Ryan. They did the online fundraising for the last Obama campaign. It's the back end and the back end. Daniel was the back end designer for the website, and then Josh did the front end design. I bet he wishes he'd hired them again, huh? Right? They actually raised more money online in 2012 than the entire campaign did in 2008. And they did it really by penetrating the lower socioeconomic communities, and they got them via mobile devices. I think, was it 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, that Pew Research came out and said that the deepest penetration of mobile devices is in the lower socioeconomic communities, right? That is where you go. And if you drive around the communities, like you pass Wendy's, you see the sign out front, it doesn't tell you that hamburgers are $1. It tells you they got free wireless. To me, it is absolutely how you access that community. And these guys figured it out. We had a city council and mayor's candidate forum. This was on a Friday evening. It was pouring rain outside. I am amazed at how engaged the community is in Chattanooga. We had regional planning, community engaged in the planning of the region. That includes Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, so that's 3 states. We also had our National Day of Civic Hacking. Open data coding at the library was a big deal for us. And I'm a huge open data fan. For those in the audience who are librarians, and you remember, used to have municipal collections, we used to collect all that, minutes of meetings and all that kind of craziness. To me, this is the electronic version of that, but we're collecting the data instead of collecting the minutes. I think it's huge. And I really think that it's a natural for libraries to be involved in open data, because managing big data sets, it's what we've done forever. We've almost invented it. Giving people access to that kind of information is really huge. And because we're a library, we've also, the portal design is coming out of our shop. This again, it's beta. We love beta. But I think this is really interesting that I have reduced the size of my cataloging department in the library, but I've hired a web developer and a back-end developer. So I think that's a very interesting, the staffing choices I'm making are very different from the staffing choices I would have made 3 or 4 years ago. I also really think that continuing to learn to grow in the profession, like being around folks like you, is really important to me. And you mentioned that I was part of the Anneli Group, which is part of the Global Libraries Initiative of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Anneli is the international network of library innovators, and you said we were just in Rotterdam for our first meeting. 47 people from 31 countries and 6 continents. That's phenomenal, and we're going to work together for 3 years. I'm really excited about the relationships. People from Australia, from Africa, I mean, all over India, all over the world. It was really amazing. And really, when you realize what folks are doing around the world in libraries, that libraries really do change lives, and we really do impact the quality of life in our communities. And I believe in my heart, we help communities to succeed. But one of the hot topics that was coming up over and over again while we were there was, how do you operate in this 21st century when you have a rigid organizational structure like we do in the government world? How can you be innovative? How can you be nimble when you are mired in bureaucracy? When how can you move on a dime? When, I need a form for that. How do you work around that? So making all of this happen in a government institution, it's not as easy as it sounds, and it's truly unrealistic for me to think that I can create a flat organization. And to do the things that I'm doing at Chattanooga Public Library, doing it in a rigid organizational structure is really difficult. Disruptive change, you have to understand how much change you can push at an organization, and the more structured it is, the less likely it is to manage that disruptive change really well. And I know there's some engineers in the audience, so please forgive me for this, because I know I'm going to get it wrong. But when I lived in Miami, there was a lot of floating foundations for buildings, so that as the underground moved and adjusted, that the building could move and adjust with that. And that's kind of how I see our organizations. If you can't move and pivot, then you just collapse. The structure can't withstand that change. It's too monumental. So basically what I did in Chattanooga was come up with a network. So, okay, well, for HR purposes, yeah, we got a hierarchy, yeah, here you go, this is what it looks like. But then what you do, we operate in a project-driven environment. So projects don't die because the cataloger doesn't agree. The cataloger's not on board. So it moves and moves and moves, and then it just gets shot down and it's dead because you have a part of your department that won't move. So what we're doing is working as bringing in the talent that we need to make a project go, make it succeed, then it becomes a system-wide initiative, and the people with the skill sets are brought in to make the project go. I don't care where you're housed. I don't care what your title is anymore. In fact, our titles change all the time. It's like, call yourself whatever you want. I just want to make sure I can pay you what you need to be paid to do the job. Just tell me what you want on your business card. It's fine. So there's some there's one thing, some things governments don't notice, right? Like, what's the name on the business card? They don't notice. I'm also okay with losing some control. I think it's really important in this environment that you've got to relinquish some control. And you've got to relinquish it to the public, and you've got to relinquish it to your staff. In fact, I like to think that I plan for losing control, if there is such a thing. One of the things that we're doing right now that's really successful is how we purchase materials for our collections. I've got a couple of people, seriously 2 people, who purchase, and they work with our vendors to get the materials in. But for the most part, the materials are purchased by the public. If you search for something, you don't find it, I'll buy it. I don't evaluate your taste. I don't judge what you want to look at. If it's available, if it's a new book, if I can purchase it, and I don't care if it's in print, video, music, ebook, you just tell me what you want, we'll pick it up and make it available to you. And I can get it to you just as fast as if you did it in Amazon. So, that, and it comes straight to you, and we will contact you in the manner you want to hear from us to come pick it up. Your tax dollars at work. This has been hugely successful for us. And right now, I was just looking at the numbers for our first quarter this fiscal year. My collection is 33% smaller than it was this time last year. My circulation's up 24%. So I'm not even really pushing the books anymore, right? And they're still moving. Let me see. So anyway, to kind of wrap all of this stuff up, basically in Chattanooga is I'm thinking of the library as a startup. And we're watching the fourth floor evolve, and it's evolving based on how the community's using this space. We don't have any preconceived notions of what the space should look like or what it needs to be. That's for the public to decide. This is their tax dollars at work. And as for the second floor, I really can't wait to see what a 21st century wonderland looks like. And the kids are going to do it. They were meeting yesterday when I was here. My staff was sending me pictures. I am a huge believer that high-speed broadband is it. I am in love with high-speed broadband. I know it means we're delivering better service to our members simply by providing them with a good experience. Think about a life where nothing has to buffer. Pages load quickly. It's not painful to do something online. We're also cleaning up our collections. We're making them smaller. I told you about that. We're removing shelving. You want to watch people's staff's heart break? Take the shelving out. But now people have space to collaborate, and they have space to create. And we're adding, here's something really simple, we are adding electric plugs so people can charge their devices. And while we do have a strategic plan, we're quick to respond to change and pivot as we need to. And we take risks, lots of them. My favorite new saying to my staff is fail fast, fail cheap, okay? But I do believe that this really is just the beginning. I think the internet is in its infancy, and my guess is that we haven't seen anything yet. Right now, I would fancy to say it's a toddler. Access to high-speed broadband in the United States is the new digital divide, and I think digital literacy is a close second. We're watching 3D printers revolutionize manufacturing. Online learning has turned education on its ear. And kids are running around the local park with their iPad taking pictures of nouns for English class. Chattanooga right now is the most connected city in the country, and we at Chattanooga Public Library really feel a huge responsibility to our community to help them to maneuver through this digital evolution. And I really believe that we're uniquely positioned to do just that. Thank you so much.
Stay there for a minute. Stay there. And it's really important for me to mention at this Institute Symposium that Chattanooga was a top 7 intelligent community in 2012, so we have to make sure we mention that. Also, I thought we'd just take a minute because I'm very intrigued by what Lee might say about this kind of expedition in light of your presentation. Could you comment?
Well, I think maybe we're starting to see an image of what a new school could look like, right? I mean, I think it's the idea of empowering and making. It's sort of redefining what learning is all about. It's quite a remarkable story.
Thank you.
And anything about where to go with your Wonder project for Lee?
Right now, I like I said, I just want it to be a place where kids can learn and play, and especially like the little ones. I'm really interested in the little toddlers. I was in Finland last summer, and the libraries there, and in Denmark for the little toddlers. They keep all of their books in bins and boxes because that's at the height that client is at that age wanting that product. We put them on shelves. They're up here. That makes that's design. That's design, but we need to create a sense of play for our children, and we need to create an exploratory environment that which is what they want anyway. It's what they're craving, it's what they're looking for. And I want the kids to be able to crawl on the furniture and not be told to get down. I want it to be a place for them to play and discover and explore.
Any questions for Corinne before, yes, Lou?
Thank you so much, Corinne, for
You're
the
welcome.
presentation.
Thank you.
And congratulations on your top 7 status a couple of years ago.
Woohoo!
You'd mentioned, well, let me rephrase this. What we're trying to promote and make people understand, because I noticed in all of your pictures, there wasn't one picture of a rack room, a cable, a telephone, right? All that fiber. Who cares?
Right.
Right? And yet, Chattanooga promotes itself as a 1 gig city, and we try to convince everybody that that's important, which we all know is. But I think what I'd like to hear from you and from Trung and maybe from some of my colleagues here is, can you make for us the connection between the importance of that 1 gig and the phrase that you made, which I love, which is that libraries are a place to create content, not consume it, and its relationship to economic and social output, which is where we all want to go, right? All your clients eventually want to get jobs, create jobs, learn, become better human beings. That's the essence of a library and a community. So my question is, how do these things connect in your minds in that physical place, and then in that virtual world, and then in the local economy? Because for the ICF, that's where the rubber is ultimately going to meet the road. So is that a fair question?
Sure, absolutely. All questions are fair.
Well,
Sure.
I can ask an unfair one, but I never would.
First of all, one of the beauties of coming into an underperforming library that has been a little bit neglected is that I could jump standards. Cities that had invested millions and millions of dollars in the 90s to wire their buildings are committed to being hardwired. And so now they're looking at more money to become wireless because it's a different, I can jump all of that. I am not interested in hardwiring my building at all. What I have. If you want to work off a hardwired, go plug over there and work. I'm not moving it. I'm not adding anything. I'm focused on a completely wireless solution, which is a lot less expensive than managing the hardwired. So that's why you're not seeing all that craziness. And quite frankly, people don't call us on the phone anymore. I mean, unless you're tweeting or unless you're texting, we're really not that hard line, that's really not how people are communicating with us. Economic development, we're in a position now with the gig environment, with that high-speed broadband, where we can provide training to the public. And that's one of the things we're looking at rolling out is online training that we pay for through a vendor, but we're able to provide it to the public for free, that helps you get your bartending license. That helps you study, learn another language if you want. That helps you get certified. You don't have to go to a community college to get certified in Microsoft Office products, for example, as an easy example. I can print a certificate for you. I can put you through a program that has a marked amount of CEUs, and we have access to that kind of training. So it's really helping people build the skills. Also, what we're doing with the kids, I really believe that a child learning HTML is just as important as a child learning their alphabet and a child learning their how do you say that, tables, the math tables. I got my algebra teacher passed me too for saying I can't do another year with you, Corinne. Anyway, but I think helping people learn those skill sets and then being a place for entrepreneurs. People come and work, we hold meetings, they're getting worn out with the coffee shop environment. They need access to expensive software. The ones who come out of school, especially the design schools, software programs that cost $2,000. We want to be able to provide access to new graduates who are trying to start their own business, access to that expensive software they can't afford right now, but they're really used to using it from school. So there's multiple ways. And like I said, the entrepreneurs are getting worn out with the cafe shop component. They want a place where they can interview clients, where they can have a meeting. So that's the kind of stuff that I see really driving, that we're part of that a cog in that economic development.
No, thank you.
How's that?
Just one note on that. There's another layer above this, and if Dana McDaniel's here, maybe he can speak to it
It's
as
right
well.
behind you.
Which is, he's ducking. But which is in Stratford, for example, they're not only doing some of the things that are fundamental in terms of training people, getting them digitally literate, because if you don't, if you put this stuff in and nobody uses it,
Right.
it's a waste, and the library sort of festers. But Dana, what you guys are trying to do with your network and what they're doing at Stratford is to put the whole community into a digital environment for the purposes of transforming it into a digital-based economy. So every business, every application now has a digital overlay, and that will presumably create new jobs, new businesses, and new wealth. And the library is important there, but can you talk to Dublin's experience?
Thanks. I guess I'd just jump into that saying that I was going to speak to this a little bit this afternoon, but the answer is yes. I mean, that's collaboration on our fiber backbone. So Lou challenged us about a year or so ago when he came and visited. He said, it's not about what you have in the way of fiber optics, what you're going to do with it.
Right.
So a lot of people talk about what they have, but what are you doing with it? So that was the challenge, and that's where we are now. Our council just passed a budget to allow us to light our backbone to 100 gig. So we're going to do that. We've been playing with it in cooperation with the Ohio Supercomputer Center and ORNet. And in our entrepreneurial center, we've made a very high-speed amount of backbone available and given them thin client services, access to data center. We've interconnected one of our companies that does simulation manufacturing, or simulation for manufacturing. They work with NASCAR, Indy, aeronautical industry, and we connected them directly to the supercomputer for cycle time. So what we're trying to do is create the environment. We're scaling it now. It's the next phase, so that people can access these services on the backbone, and it's what they'll create as a result of that. So that's where we're headed. We're there on a very small beta scale.
Right, love beta.
We love beta too. My city council loves beta
Yeah.
when they're putting millions of dollars into stuff. So we're going to the scalability next.
But
So-
Dana, don't you agree that there's also a component of this that's quality of life? Like, I was using an example earlier about my friends were of the age now where our parents are in nursing homes, and you go visit your mom on Saturday afternoon and you spend your 4 hours helping her get all of her information logged on to Medicare because it's all so slow. Imagine if you've got access to high-speed broadband and it takes you 10 minutes instead of 4 hours. You now have all that time with your mom that you didn't have before. There's a quality of life component to this that's huge. And especially if you want businesses if you want banking to do it online, you want healthcare to be online, you want all of this stuff to happen online, you got to get your communities digitally literate, and you've got to give them the tools to do it. And when a page takes 45 minutes to load, it's not going to fly. It's not going to be successful. It's going to fold on itself. And so I see the quality of life component of it being huge. On top of, the economic, it all fits. It all fits.
I agree, 120%.
Great, I'm going to let Lee respond. We're going to take one more question, and then we'll move to our third speaker. Lee.
So Lou, you asked the questions, why is the broadband interesting? I think that there are actually physical space, but there are also virtual space, right? And I think that mechanism basically connects that two worlds together. And the other thing that's interesting as I listen to your presentation is that I think that there are 4 things why people are gravitating toward your space, this space of wonder. You can take the library label off of it because it no longer is a library. But there are 4 ingredients. People like to come there and learn, right? They like to share what they've learned and their skill sets. They would like to celebrate it as well. And then lastly, there is this incredible sense of energy that represents about that space. So the idea of having that capacity to share is that I think that it mediate that tension between the world is flat and it is a spiky world all at the same time.
Well, you certainly moved from a, quote, underperforming library to one that set the bar
We're trying.
for many others. I'm wondering, though, you talked about the role of the library moving more into, certification, providing the kind of things a community college would. At the same time, educations of higher learning are moving more in the direction of community involvement, the kind of project that's starting here at Walsh. I'm thinking of something in Columbus, the Mind Mart at the Columbus College of Art and Design, which brings in community members to have students work on projects. And it seems like the boundary between libraries and education is becoming more and more permeable. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, based on what you've learned so far, do you see distinct roles for the two, or do you see this merger continuing?
Well, if I could predict where education's going, boy, I'd be worth a fortune. I could retire. Education, I think, is a wide open. What's going to happen to it is who knows. And it's just, I love a good crisis. I find opportunity, and I love, in every crisis. And education is in crisis right now. I think libraries are doing things that community colleges have done for a long time, ESL, GED training. This isn't really a new road for us. Opening stuff online and so that you can get a certification that, you took C++ training at the library and you did it for 8 hours. I just don't see that as invading anybody's turf, so to speak. I think people go where it's convenient. If it's convenient to go to a community college where you want to learn something, but then you want to build on it, I think that's, and you want to do something that's really structured, that's one thing. I think if you're looking for a learning environment that's a little bit more laissez-faire, shall I say, the library would be a good place for that. Like I said, I deal with cradle to grave. And so that to me is, I hate the term because it's a cliche now, but lifelong learning. That's really what we're about. Whereas I look at community college, that's going to take you to your next step. That's going to help you because you're going to, you want to go on to get a PhD. You want to go on through that structured educational system. Whereas I think we're more about helping you get the skill set so you can get that job that you want right now. I need to know how to type. I need to know how to use Access. In order to get that job I want. That's immediate, that's learning. I need to get my bartender license to get that job. That's kind of where I see it. So I think there's going to be crossover. It's going to happen. I think we're going to step on each other's toes. That's just how transition works. And we're all just figuring this out. No one's got the answer. We are all, and that's why I love groups like this. I love what I'm doing with Anneli. I'm also doing some stuff with the Art Strategies group where we're having conversations with museums and cultural centers. How are we going to do this? And it's the conversations that will help us figure it out, and being allowed to make mistakes and being allowed to celebrate your successes as well. So I think it's going to be an interesting journey. I'm fascinated by it, but where we all end up, my husband's a college professor. We have fabulous dinner conversations. And he's near retirement. Oh, he's just mortified by what's going on in education. So anyway, we'll see where we end up. We'll see where we end up. But there's plenty of it out there for us. There's plenty of people looking for it. So
Thank you, Corinne Hill.
thank you.
Thank you to both Corinne and Lee, and I hope you get a sense to these two incredible systems hackers so far of why we have this as a town hall meeting, because we wouldn't have been able to pull these nuggets for education. We're getting them from design professionals and librarians, and if we just had an education meeting, we may have missed some really critical pieces to our future.